bonjour à tous. Et bon, je vais tout de suite basculer en anglais parce que je sais qu'il y a un certain nombre de supporters Vechain qui nous écoutent hors de France. Donc j'espère que ce sera OK pour tout le monde pour suivre. So welcome everybody. My name is Jérôme Grière. I'm a General Manager Europe for Vechain. So I basically handle the business development for Vechain in Europe. And today I'm going to talk to you about a blockchain for enterprise. What's the vision of Vechain, and maybe share with you some insight, and maybe we can discuss which industry will be the first one to embrace blockchain. Will it be fashion, food, energy, or some other industry? So to start with, let's talk about blockchain for business and what have been the trends and what are we talking about. So we at Vechain believe that in the recent evolution of blockchain development has gone through three major phases. At the very beginning was the technical consensus. So different blockchain arose. You all know that blockchain started with Bitcoin. That's the first example that created the technology, soon followed by Ethereum. And then different type of technical consensus came about. You had proof of stake, proof of authority, proof of work at the beginning. Different technology brought different technical aspects, and they're still competing today, although we can see some trends arising. Then we moved towards a business consensus. So the business consensus was around where will we find the value in blockchain? Is blockchain really interesting? This really started back in 2015, at the end of 2015, when The Economist published an article calling blockchain a trust machine. That was really the kickoff for blockchain to enter the business world. And for a couple of years, 2-3 years, companies started scratching their heads and say, okay, is blockchain interesting? Should I look into it? Then they move on to, how can I do with this? It seems to be such a hype that we need to find ways to make use of it. I don't know yet whether it's going to be useful or not, but let's go and try out. And gradually they move to proof of concepts or pilot projects. Some companies use it just for the sake of the technology. Other companies use it because they found some use case, and it happened to be on blockchain. So they say, yeah, why not? If it's blockchain behind AI or whatever technology, it doesn't matter to me. So based on the companies, some went there for the hype, some went there for the actual use of it. But then a lot of discussion have been going on, including now, about how to best use blockchain. And as we are going through this phase, then we also see a new phase starting, which is a governance consensus. The governance consensus is when you start to have enough adoption on the blockchain, a lot of uses, then creates a lot of activity. Then you need to to organize this a little bit, create some standards, some rules and regulations. The government themselves start to play with it, start to use it, and start to investigate what is the best way to organize the entire ecosystem. So they are here really to create the new rules for the game, such that it's fair for every participant. Now, focusing more on the technology itself and the use for business, it started, as I said, from a technological innovation. That is a real innovation. I mean, blockchain is a set of technical components that each individually are old. Like you're talking about replication, old stuff. You're talking about network synchronization, old stuff. You're talking about cryptography, very old stuff. Cryptography is over 100 years old. So all these elements are quite old, each of them. But the way they were combined together into a self-sufficient technology, the blockchain for Bitcoin, is a huge innovation, a huge leap forward. So that's really what happened at the very beginning. Then move to the blockchain infrastructure. Like after you've created really the basics, like I would say the prehistory of blockchain, Then you start having programming language to make it like an infrastructure, as opposed to just a technology, something that other people can build on. So it's a little bit like you create almost an operating system for the blockchain. So now you have the backbone, but then you have the software as well. And then you moved into the business application. Now you have the software, then businesses start to look into it. And the most important part that's going to start right after this phase is how do you make money out of these business uses? And that is the critical part. And the answer to our question today, what will be the first industry to embrace blockchain, will lie with this. You could potentially rephrase that as what is going to be the first industry that really makes money thanks to blockchain. And when you find that, then it's going to develop very fast. So all these initial steps that you see on this slide, the technology innovation, the infrastructure, the business application are just prerequisites to make money. If all this doesn't make any money, then you can build the best thing you want. You can build the nicest white elephant, but nobody's going to use it. It's never going to be successful. And as I said in the previous slide, you will need rules and regulation to make sure that all of this is happening smoothly. Another way of looking at it, because we look at it very much from the angle of technology, another way of looking at it is to find a comparable. And instead of starting from the ground up and trying to forecast what's going to happen, then we can look back and see, okay, has there been any sort of event in the past, recent or far past, that looks similar to this? And then, of course, we see the example of the internet. And the internet started as a technology. It then moved on to creating new services that people started using instead of using old services. So example is people are started using emails as opposed to sending paper mail. They started using instant chat or potentially voice over IP instead of using their telephone. They moved their day-to-day habits onto this new technology. And this is creating room for companies to grow. And once those companies have grown, that has generated a lot of information, a lot of data. Who is calling who? Where are the flows of information, etc. And obviously, the most important of all this flow were the information about what are people searching, like on search engines that came about to kind of organize a little bit this new technology. Then you saw many people obviously looking around because the internet is so vague. But then you have a central point where you can do analysis of what the trends of research are. So for the first time, you kind of have insight into people's minds at a large scale. So obviously now this trend has gone much further. Now we're not only using search engine, but even everything related to social media, for instance. But there's also a lot of sources of data or even metadata, just the data about the behavior without content, that helps create a lot of value out of the internet itself. So internet has gone a long way from the introduction of the technology to now the new business models. And our view is that blockchain is following a similar path. And the question is, again, going back, which one is going to be the one to make the most money first out of that? So you see in my words, kind of the profit for companies is really like the benefit is really the key factor. So where is this going to come from when you use blockchain? I mean, how is that going to happen? So there are obviously many ways to look at this. There will be many ways that value is coming about. So from Vechain, we have one way of looking at it. This is the one I'm going to show you now. So blockchain, at the very beginning, at the core service, like very basic service, will be about or is about raw data storing. Okay, you have some information, you want to store it to the blockchain. What is great because the blockchain will guarantee that the information is not modified, is immutable, You can timestamp the information, so you can prove something happened before something else, which is very important. In computer science, you cannot prove that. It's the first time you can do it. And then you can also track who has entered this information. You can prove the ownership of the information. So all those three factors, ownership, immutability, and date and time, is huge. Is a core component on top of which everything is going to be built. So then once you get that covered, the next step is data provenance. Data provenance means, okay, something is happening in real life, you want to capture it. So you can talk about traceability of ingredients in a recipe, you can talk about contracts being signed, whatever you want, is you are reflecting something real into the blockchain. And this something real is usually part of a process. So you actually can set up your process fully into the blockchain. The next one up, once you've done that, is how can you be sure that the information that has been put in the blockchain is the correct one? And here, our vision is that once you're comfortable putting your business flow or business information onto the blockchain in an organized way, then you need to verify that this information is correct. And you need to materialize that on the blockchain to make sure that someone that will use this information can at the same time verify that this information has been certified by somebody else. So if I put, for instance, oranges are blue on the blockchain, well, it will never change. People will be sure that it's me who did it, and you will know when I did that. But it doesn't make this sentence true. The only way is to get somebody that will look over my shoulder and say, well, yeah, I can confirm oranges are true, and I will put that onto the blockchain. So obviously, with such an assertion, nobody's going to confirm that. But for a business process, and we will see later on in the presentation, that is a critical part of adoption. For a business process, you need someone, a third party, to verify the actual statement or the actual information on the blockchain. It could be untrue, not necessarily because of misconduct, but it could be the case that there was a mistake in the process, or there was a mismatch in the information, and so on and so forth. So you need this, and this is a critical part. Then once you have information that is verified on the blockchain, then you can start working with it, doing business intelligence, data analysis, and whatnot. And here the great power is that you will have one single version of the truth. Oftentimes in companies, the big challenge is that for one piece of information, you may have different versions. For instance, how many employees do I have in my company? Well, if you ask the HR department, you will have one answer. Maybe if you ask the operations department, you may have another answer. Why? Because they use different rules, or they have different frequency of updates, and so on and so forth, which means information difficult to reconcile. And the number of people is something that seems so easy that should be easy to match. But then you have many more information. What is my volumes of sales? Well, actually, are you talking when you make the sales, when the money comes in, blah, blah, blah. All that can be very tricky. And some systems may record it one way, some another way. So then you have mismatch. So with this layer, the fourth layer, then you have a way to do data analysis based on one single version of the truth. Then once you have that, you have a system where you totally master your information. It's secured, you have traceability, accountability, immutability. Then you can start talking about the concept of ecosystem. And here, I would like to share with you a comment from an economist I heard on the French TV a few months back. And actually, this economist has nothing to do with blockchain or cryptocurrency or anything. And the TV presenter was asking the person, should we buy Bitcoin? Is there any value in Bitcoin? Because behind the scenes, there's nothing. There's no physical gold. There's nothing at all. There's no physical asset. And the person said, well, Bitcoin is really two things. Number one, it's a way to transfer wealth, transfer money if you want, transfer assets in a very efficient way. Like you can transfer from any place to any place within minutes. So you don't have any other technology that can do that. Like choose 2 points on the planet randomly, and then you can do it very fast. That's number one. And number two, more importantly, is the ecosystem that it brings. So over Bitcoin, you have different ecosystems that have been created and that get their anchor and they're organized through the blockchain. And this is the second part that gives value to Bitcoin. So in other words, why should Bitcoin stay alive? Also because it enables a different ecosystem to exist. And this part is a critical one that is true in all blockchains. And finally, once you master all this, then you start thinking of new ways to make money, new way to monetize the blockchain. Just the same as the likes of Facebook, all the social media now, they just manage to monetize or like the information about people are talking about this, tweeting about that, etc., etc. And nobody would have thought about this 15 years ago. But because they've created their own ecosystem and they're able to find ways to monetize it. And going forward, there will be new ways of monetizing the social media ecosystem as well that we have not thought about yet. That will just come when one gets the idea. So if you look at this, step 1 to 4 are really things that companies will be able to use to save costs, okay? Maybe number 4 is debatable. Maybe you can increase also your revenue by identifying where which products sell better in which time of the year, et cetera, et cetera. But the other 3 are really here to save costs. And the last 2, ecosystem and value monetization, will generate new income, new revenues. So anyway, both will contribute to make company more profitable. And when they find a way to make this happen in their industry, something that is relevant to their day-to-day operations, then they will definitely go full steam on blockchain. So now that we kind of saw some theoretical concepts about the blockchain, we can dive into industries. So which industry will be first? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to share with you maybe 3 insights into 3 industries. And then after that, we'll go on to the Q&A. And during the Q&A, then we can debate what's your view. Is one of these industry, maybe not on the use case that I present, but is one of these industry the first one that's going to adopt blockchain massively? Do you guys have other forecasts, other ideas? And we can keep that open. We can handle that through the Q&A session. So first, is it fashion? Is fashion going to be the first one? Well, at Vechain, we believe that the future of fashion industry lies in becoming more sustainable. And before actually going into the details, I should mention that Vechain is partnering with a company called DNVGL. DNVGL is a Norwegian company created about 150 years ago, so in the 19th century, and has been doing certification of companies ever since. So in France, for instance, because I know we have a lot of French listening to the presentation, in France we have AFNOR or Bureau Veritas. That might be more known than the DNVGL, but basically they do the same. The DNVGL, what they do, for companies, they audit companies and they certify them against existing standards. So the most famous existing standard is ISO, but there are many more standards that they can certify against. So they're in the business of certification. And the DNVGL and Vechain have worked together for like a couple of years now, over a couple of years. And to solidify this relationship, even the DNVGL is a minority shareholder of Vechain. So now you know everything. So at Vechain, when we encounter certain projects, including everything about sustainability, which is a huge topic right now and in the past year or two, then we work hand in hand with the DNVGL. So what we've observed is in the fashion industry, then sustainability has become a big topic. And why is that? Well, is because they want to target more the aspiration of the young generation. So young generation are more sensitive to the environment. They want to go beyond just the look or the hype of the brand. They also want to know that these things have been done in a sustainable way, or in a way they like, or in a way they find it fair. Also, they want more information about the product. They want to be able that once they get a product, they want to know. I want to know more. How this is done, what's inside, etc. Just using the existing label saying it's 20% this, 30% that is not enough. What is behind the this and what is behind the that? So that's also part of it. Of course, they want sustainable proof that behind the this and the that you have sustainable products, you have sustainable processes. They're very keen on using technology. That's true everywhere in the world. If you look at China, for instance, it's even more true than anywhere else. China is so crazy about using technology. Everything is about QR code in China. As soon as you find something, you want to flash the QR code that goes with it to have additional information. In Western countries, it's not true as much as in China, but it's getting more and more true. And finally, as well, is the end of life effort. So now, fashion, clothing, you buy items, you wear them, they become, you're not happy with them anymore, or you want to have new one, just as simple as that. Then you want to be sure that they will be disposed of in the right way. Either they're going to be reused by somebody else, or they're going to be destroyed, and maybe they're going to be, whatever remains after destruction is going to be used for something else. So these are some 5 key drivers that make the fashion industry change. That's what we have observed. So now, how can blockchain address this? How can blockchain help on that? So here, I share with you the example of a recycled T-shirt presented on My Story. So My Story is a product that the individual developed together with Vechain. Vechain has contributed with the technical aspect of the My Story product, and the individual has done everything else basically. And how does it work? Then it's like you're gonna be tracking how the raw materials are built, where they come from, where they are sourced, and that means that when a company wants to exhibit their product, because the end goal for a company using, for instance, My Story is that in store, when you go by, you can scan the product either through a QR code, but you can also use NFC. So you scan with your phone, and then on the back of your phone, you don't even need to use the camera. You just scan with the back of your phone, and then you get the information. You want to be able to see, where this was produced, where the information, the raw materials are coming from, who did that, was that done by, you don't want that to be done, obviously, by children. Child work, obviously, should be banned. So how do you verify this is not happening? Meanwhile, you may also want to make sure that the workers were paid fair wages when they did the work, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, if you do that in France you have, or in Western countries, you have a minimum wage. So, nobody can be legally paid under minimum wage. But in other countries, it's not like that. And maybe sometimes you consider minimum wage is not fair. So, all this information, more and more, the trend is that people, when they buy a good, especially in fashion, if you have 2 products, one that doesn't say anything, the other one that proves proves all these values, then the business is going to go towards the one that proving the value. So this is what happened. What we've done with My Story. So this has been done with a few brands. You probably have seen on the news, but the concept is kind of always the same. You have the physical track. Auditors and some IoT devices track the manufacturing process, and meanwhile you have the digital track where information is stored on the blockchain as it's happening in real life in the physical track, and all this information is made available remember the chart I showed you a few minutes ago. Raw data stored on the blockchain, make sense from a process point of view. Have a third party that verifies it, and then you can make this available for your customer. So this is, I would say, the most fundamental application of blockchain, but it's a critical one. So now you go on store, you can flash the tags that you see on the bottom left of the screen, and then all of a sudden you have the information, and the information has been verified by a third party. So you have transparency and verification. So is this going to be the game changer? Is this what's going to make? Is it going to be broadly used in the fashion industry, and I should even say in the luxury industry, because you probably have seen that many of the luxury brands commit to have sustainable products, and especially the sourcing of their raw material. So the jury is still out. Maybe we can debate later on. Next, the food and drinks industry. Is this going to be the one that that will be the first one to use blockchain at a large scale? So here I want to share with you end-to-end traceability or end-to-end transparency will become the norm. So that's also our belief. Nowadays, you have the list of ingredients. Okay, fair enough. But like if someone or if a company uses some raw material coming from another company, then they will transfer the list of raw ingredients. It's not totally clear where it's coming from, what type of details you're talking about. If you say beef, okay, I'm doing, let's say I'm doing lasagna pasta. Is this the beef that is in my lasagna? Which country is the beef from? How has the beef been fed, and so on? You have no idea. Has the beef traveled a lot before it was put in the lasagna? No idea. If it's beef, because we've all seen that in recent history, beef turned out to be horse. So, transparency will become the norm. So here is an example of a project that we've done also with the NVGL and ESGI Group. ESGI Group is a French company that is working between China and France, doing a lot of, or Southeast Asia and France, that is doing a lot of import-export. And they're launching a new platform called Foodgate. And the purpose of Foodgate is to enable a buyer, like corporate buyers in China, to purchase premium product coming from France, so Label Rouge beef, for instance, premium product, with having the guarantee that this is, first of all, the animal is supposed to be. Second, that is also a premium one that is received a label that was used by according to French norms, and also that once it's been, when it was cut, when it was shipped, etc., and when it arrived in China, it was still the same one that the one that was shipped, and have transparency. So that is the service that Foodgate is offering in China. And now that we have we are in a period with the COVID-19 where health is at the forefront of the news, then this type of service is even more useful than it was before. And how is that happening? Well, for this to happen, then you need to involve everybody along the chain, and this is what we're doing. You need to involve the farmer. You need to involve the slaughterhouse. You need to involve either the carrier, the airline, or you need to involve the logistic company, not the airline itself. And then you need food experts as well, because when you look at traceability, you can't just say, okay, I will give a scanner to everybody that is touching the product, and they will scan in turn. It's not enough. You need to have experts that will map out the process of a specific industry, and the process varies totally from one industry to another industry, and it also varies within the same industry. Tracking beef and tracking wine, not the same at all. Even tracking beef and pork, although similar, is not exactly the same. So what you want is experts in the field. So that's what the NVGL and ASI are bringing to the table. And once this is fully mapped out, then you need obviously the underlying technology to collect this information, collect information about the verification, and to make this information available for the client. And we'll see how this picks up because it's still at the beginning. And we are quite confident that this is going to be the norm. Now, going forward, when you have the first movers that will provide end-to-end traceability, then it's likely that every client will say, I want full traceability, because they will start casting some doubt. When you have no traceability, what is the reason why I don't have traceability? Do you have anything to hide, or is it just because you don't want to go through the hassle of making this available? So again, is this going to be the next one to be the prominent one? Is it this one? Is it fashion? Next example, healthcare. Healthcare. So here, healthcare, it's a tough one. Will healthcare be the next one? It's a tough one because healthcare is a very sensitive industry, and it's an industry that is keen to innovate, but is even more keen to stay safe. And the best way to stay safe is to not change anything. Something that works, if you don't change it, it's likely it's going to continue to work. If you change it, then you can improve the situation, but you can also worsen it. So healthcare, the cost of a situation that worsens is higher than other industries. So it's a very tricky one. Nevertheless, here I want to share with you a very recent use case, a very recent initiative from Idante. Idante is a company that is a joint venture between a company in Italy called EDH, and which is doing software development, different type of IT software development, and a hospital in Cyprus. And basically what they've done is creating healthcare passports for patients. So it's being tried now in one hospital, the Mediterranean Hospital of Cyprus. And the concept is, I think it's quite straightforward. I think everybody has the idea, but Idante is making it happen. Is a unique card per person, which uniquely identify the patient and keeps track of how the patient has gone through the healthcare process. So it allows the patient to keep track of its history. Meanwhile, it also allows the hospital to improve its performance, because then it's able to track across the board what's happening. So the way it works is fairly simple. Using your card when you enter the hospital hall, you check in, and then you basically the hospital, the little counter will tell you which area your appointment is in, so it increases a bit efficiency. When you get to the triage room, it's gonna again connect to the system to take a snapshot, or secure, actually I should say rather, secure information about your medical record, about what happened, some constants that were diagnosed, or additional information the doctor wants to input. And in the emergency room, same way, if you go under surgery, or I should say surgery room more than emergency room. In the surgery room, important thing like everything related to your surgery, the minutes of the surgery, what happened, what type of action the surgeon performed, what type of drugs they used, is kind of recorded in the passport. So the patient can consult this information. Honestly is not so much for the patient to read for themselves, because usually this type of health information is difficult to understand, but it's more for the patient to give to share this information on demand, either with other hospitals or other doctors when they get a new surgery or something new on their health. Because it often happened to us that you need to go to hospital. Well, last year I needed to go to hospital because I tore my Achilles tendon playing football. And they asked me a bunch of questions like, when you were young, did you have this, did you have that, etc., etc. Well, I kind of answer out of memory. but it's not extremely accurate, and let alone what type of product. What type of am I allergic to some drugs, or I don't know. So this type of passport is here to address that, and it enables information sharing. At the same time, it's a way for the hospital to collect also some metadata to see whether it's operating efficiently. For instance, you're a patient, you come to the hospital and you wait 2 hours and a half before your appointment because your appointment is 2.5 hours late. Is it normal, not normal? Yeah, the hospital that wants to improve needs to monitor this type of information. So they use this as well. And how this is happening is using a blockchain locker that Idente developed. Is actually blockchain will only store hashes of information, and the data coming from the actual health data is never stored by Idente. It always stays within the hospital. So Idente is just, I mean, this passport is just organizing the link with the blockchain and the aggregation across different systems. So it makes it more robust and very easy to deploy. So and obviously it prevents from any counterfeiting. I'm a bit harsh when I write that. It protects against any mismatch in the database or any wrong update of the records. So that was 3 examples of different industry. I mentioned energy in the title. There's also an energy case that with liquefied natural gas that we worked on, which is also related to traceability and how natural gas is flowing through the border into China, how to track the shipment, how to settle the bills, the invoices when the shipment is sold, how to verify how much gas has been lost along the way as part of the transport process, and so on and so forth. This is also used on blockchain. So this is also addressing needs of the industry. So maybe as a last section, I will show you briefly how it happened or what tool we use behind the scenes to make all this happen, which is the common denominator. You've seen some cases using my story, some cases using DNVGL directly, or some using Idente and other third party, but they all use basically behind the scene the same Vechain tools. It's a tool that is called Toolchain. It's available as a SaaS platform to make it simple, because the main concept is, again, remember this slide where I show you the boxes. First, step 1 is storing raw data. Step 2 is to making the business process. Step 3 is verification. Step 4 is data analysis. So this is like with this logic that we designed that tool, enabling any company to be able to use blockchain without necessarily knowing about blockchain itself, how to program a smart contract, like how to provide them with the tools to be able to do that. And also our vision is that data should be in an open blockchain, because only open public blockchains, only them guarantee the true immutability, because the people that run the nodes are different from the people that are using the system, and they don't necessarily know each other, and they don't know which transaction they're validating, and they don't know what's inside a transaction. So if you really want a good segregation of duty, you have to be on a public blockchain. But the downside is when you're for a corporate, when you are on a public blockchain, you need to use tokens, because those public blockchains, they rely on tokens. Otherwise, there's no such thing as a public blockchain. Simply because the nodes, each time they validate a transaction, they want the compensation right away. They're not going to send invoices at the end of the month to everybody who made the transaction. They just want the compensation at the same time as the transaction is validated. That's why the use of token has made that possible and popular. So with this tool, we abstract the concept of tokens, and companies don't need to be involved with that. They're just buying credits that allow them to run transactions. So that really allow them to, go deeper into their core business. Don't focus, don't waste energy on the actual technology, understanding the roots of the technology. this is how it looks when, for instance, when you want to do there is a built-in function to do the product showcasing, because oftentimes it's about how do you want to present the information that has been stored on the blockchain. So these are this is one very popular use case that you want to showcase the product. On the left-hand side, you have the standard application of Vechain that comes with the software, but then obviously you can use the API to customize. And on the right-hand side, you have a customized version of it, which is the example of the NVGLMI story that I told you about earlier. Because I know there is quite a number of you are technical. High level, these are the key components of the solution. So you see at the top, front-end apps and IoT. IoT is, for instance, the NFC you put into your jacket, or the QR code you put onto the bag, the bottle of wine. Sorry. Then it's calling different type of APIs, which themselves rely on smart contracts that Vechain has maintained. And those smart contracts obviously are run by the Vechain public blockchain, which is a public blockchain with its own governance as independent from the Vechain company. It's run by the Vechain Foundation, which is a different entity. So yeah, what makes it different? Third-party services, application, etc., etc. Okay, given the time, maybe I suggest now we can move on to the Q&A.
Yes, perfect, Jerome. Thanks to you. We are proud to have participants from other continents, including one from Australia, who have two questions about recruitment and developers tools. But I think that you already answered to the last one.
Okay.
Could you see them on the chat? We have another question about Vechain centralization.
Okay, so I see some question, but I don't see the one about recruiting. The first question I see is, isn't Vechain somehow a little bit centralized, at least, and doesn't that make it vulnerable to attacks and manipulation? Okay, so this question I think is related to the core technology. So today I did not talk about the core blockchain. Okay, this is really the business of the foundation, not really my business, but still I'm somewhat knowledgeable about it. So the way the core blockchain works is a proof of authority. So it's I would say to make it simpler to understand, it's a bit the same as Facebook Libra, although it was started 1 year before. I mean, the mainnet of Vechain was launched in 2018 in the summer, so it's not almost 2 years old now, live. And the concept is you have independent computers that run each node, and they don't know each other. Okay, the foundation knows their identity because it approves their identity. I personally don't know. I know some of them, but not all of them. I know the ones that made it public, like the NVGL made it public, so I know they own a node, but I don't know them really. And the concept is those computers validate transaction, but they don't know which transaction they validate, and they cannot choose which transaction they validate. And whatever they do, it's public. So it's not centralized. There is true that in the governance of the Vechain blockchain, there is a component of centralization because you have a foundation, which role is here to ensure that when a decision is taken by the community, all the nodes implement that decision. And that's pretty much the only role of the foundation. Everything else derives from this principle. And the reason for this is because one of the key success factors for blockchain in the enterprise world will be the fact that the blockchain technology can adapt to the evolving needs of the corporate. So Vechain has been started with the Ethereum in mind. So it's been strongly inspired from Ethereum, and then it's been rewritten to take into account comments from corporate customers that we've had along the way. And one of the comments was, if I want to make a significant change because now the industry needs this type of use and the technology as it stands does not allow it. So maybe the most common change is scalability. I need more transaction per second. That's it. And this goes through through a change of or need to change the consensus, or need to change something inside the core technology. If you look at public blockchain, like more decentralized, like Ethereum, then it takes forever. It takes months or years to happen, which is at the same time a strength and a weakness. It's a strength because it means that if someone wants to hack the technology, then it will be even more hard. But the weakness is that if you want to change for good reasons, it's also as hard. So that's the reason why we have this concept. So it's true that it's more centralized in the way that there is the central body, the foundation that organizes the decision making and makes sure the decision making is happening or is enforced. But all the rest remains decentralized. So I would say no, it's not that centralized. It's more centralized for that particular reason. And it doesn't make it more vulnerable to attacks. And also, like, you always have ways to when something happens and an attack, you can always ask the community to vote or to propose a solution and let the community decide whether or not this solution is appropriate or not. So let me see. So will Vechain build tools for developers to build, or has it been as developers on board on more devs? Well, yeah, I mean, what I discussed today is very business oriented. So these are tools really for businesses like your business. You're running in one industry, and amongst the million of things you need to do, well, there is one thing you need to achieve using blockchain. So obviously, when you're going to use it, you don't want to start from the very beginning of blockchain. So you want high-level tools. So that's why you have a tool chain here that gives you tools to either do it with a click of a mouse, or if you want to personalize a little bit more, if you want to customize, then you have some APIs that you can play with. So that's one aspect of it. Now, there is other aspect that I did not cover in the presentation. You have a set of tools more for, I would say, more hardcore developers, like about how to roll out a smart contract, this type of thing. This is a set of tools that are available more from the foundation side. Usually it's available through GitHub /Vechain. Well, you will find the source code of the node, but you will find also the source code of a number of tools there that a developer that is keen to roll up his sleeves and make his hand dirty will be using. But today, given the topic was more about, and actually I'm less familiar with those tools, to be perfectly honest with you. There are a number of tools, but I'm less familiar with them. I'm much more familiar with the ones that are oriented towards business use, like you want to perform a business task, then how can you do it? But yeah, there are different type of tools. Okay, someone said just scanned it with my camera app on my phone and it works. I don't know which QR code this person scanned, but I'm glad to see it work. Okay. Does the alternative to token that enterprise use differ greatly from the burn of it? Or oh yeah, isn't still related to allow for this for burn? Yeah. So okay, again, it's more of an infrastructure question, but I'm happy to answer that. Just the same as company said, if you want us to, if you want a company to use a blockchain, a public blockchain, then you need to make sure that technical upgrades can be smooth, but at the same time, you need to make sure the price of the service will not fluctuate. Like today, my bill is 100 and next month is 120. there is some industry that face this problem. If you look at the airline industry, for instance, well, they give you a price for tickets, which are more or less the same, this price. I mean, it changes if you're on holiday or not on holiday, but the rest of the time from one year to the other is broadly the same. But to fly the plane, they need to put oil, kerosene, and this can fluctuate a lot. Okay, so if you cannot avoid it, then you cannot avoid it. So I mean, the oil industry has not found a way to keep the oil price stable, so you cannot avoid it. But you need the oil, so it's critical. So they have to deal with it. But for blockchain, if you tell them, well, look, the token, you will buy the token, or we will buy the token for you, but we will charge you on a variable price, then a company is not going to like that. You cannot tell them from one month to the other it's going to be changing. So on the Vechain blockchain, to provide a way to stabilize the price or make the fluctuation less high, there is a dual token mechanism. Okay, one is the native token and one is the secondary token. I will not go too much into the details, but to keep it simple, if you're using electricity, then you can consider the secondary token as going to be the one that is used to make your transactions, is the electricity, and the primary token is like a solar panel. So the solar panel will generate electricity from scratch, and the same thing in Vechain. The secondary token is generated by the main token from scratch. So that creates a price fixing in terms of using the technology, a price fixing mechanism. And this is the mechanism that is used on the blockchain. So this mechanism is true everywhere, every time. So like no matter what you build on top, it's always gonna come. Is the basic. It's always gonna come down to this. So what Vechain does is Vechain is managing this supply of token. And when a client uses toolchain, for instance, they buy credits on toolchain, and those credits are usually and those credits can be used on the system either to make transaction on the blockchain. We don't actually say a transaction; we say a write to the blockchain, like you write information or you trigger a process done by the blockchain itself. So this is where the credits are used. So behind the scenes, obviously, you need some V4, the secondary token, the VTHO that is mentioned in the question. You need this all the time. But what Vechain does is it takes care of that for the client. So the client doesn't need to be worrying about this. In the future, if we see that clients are more and more keen to do it by themselves, which may be the case in the future when management of token is has become something more natural in corporate, it will probably be the case that they want to optimize themselves the cost of the token, just the same as they optimize the cost of other assets. Then it will be a different approach for us. But right now, the question for them is more like, I don't want to deal with that. It's too complicated. I'm already understanding the blockchain is complicated. So one step at a time, I just focus on the core service. Thank you for answering some of my questions. No problem at all. Okay, on the live chat, actually, I don't know if there was a question. I don't see, or maybe if you can scroll up, Michael.
I think that's all.
Okay, that's all.
For the question.
Good. So there are two options: either people fell completely asleep, or they actually want to do something else, or was sparkling clear. I hope it's the second one. So anyway, let me thank everybody of you that connected today. Here you can see our Twitter. Twitter account is where you will find 100% of the news. It will redirect you to other resources if there is more details about this news. WeChat, for those who are keen to use WeChat, and obviously for any question, business or non-business related, please email us at info@vechain.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jérôme. Back to French. On se donne une demi-heure de pause avant le talk de Jérôme de Tichet de Ledger qui reprend dans 28 minutes maintenant. À de suite.